You know what's interesting is that as you raise your frequency, as you raise your vibration, the people that have not yet raised their vibration at the same level are going to start to perceive you in a certain way. Now, it's not to say that there's anything wrong with somebody not raising their vibration. That's just a choice that they're making. But it is very interesting to notice how when you raise your vibration, the people that are not raising their vibration, again, not a judgment, but that's just how it is in life sometimes, you start to notice that they are perceiving you in a certain way that is just simply not true. It's almost like when you're talking with somebody that is not doing the inner work, so to speak, they are projecting things onto you that are completely not true. And it's almost like they flip it completely backwards to what the truth really is. And I'm going to share with you in this video how to understand this dynamic that happens when somebody raises their consciousness, how people that are not raising their consciousness or are at a lower level of consciousness are going to perceive you, and how you can use this to your advantage so that you don't fall into the projections and decrease your vibration. So this is going to be how unconscious people view conscious people and how you can use this to your advantage to keep your vibration high. So if you're new to this channel, what I want you to do is I want you to hit that subscribe button. I want you to hit that notification bell because I do post a new video every single day. Also, if you want to work with me one-on-one personally, hit the link that's in the description box of this video to apply for a free consultation. Also, I do have a group program coming up in the next couple of months. So if you want more details on that, if you want to be part of the program, the link will be in the description box of this video as well. So it's very, very interesting how this happens. This is what I noticed along my path, is that this is the first thing I want to share with you, is that the less ego you begin to have in your life, the more that you transcend the personal sense of self, which then raises your frequency because you're not attached to the reality that you're in anymore. You're able to kind of look at it from an objective perspective, so to speak, even though it's not quite objective, it is all still subjective, but you're able to kind of zoom out and go meta on reality. It's just you raising your consciousness. If you're watching this video, then you probably know how that goes. But then what happens is that the more that you transcend your ego, the more that you are not being egotistical whatsoever, the more that the people that are living in ego are going to think that you have a big ego. So they flip it completely backwards. The people that have less ego, the people that have less ego are going to be perceived as the people that have more ego by the people that have more ego. And if you're an empath, if you're a sensitive being, which is a label that I invite people not to attach to, but it's just a word to represent that you are more sensitive, more conscious, more aware, less ego, what happens is that this can become very frustrating because we don't see that the person is actually viewing you in a certain way because of the energy levels that you've built in your life. And what we can do is we can understand this dynamic that happens in the relationships that we have in our life, because what's going to happen is it's going to be completely flipped backwards. So the more conscious you become, the more unconscious they're going to think you are. The more selfless you become, the more selfish they are going to think you are. Now, I don't want to create this separation, and I don't want to make it sound like I'm judging anybody or placing conscious people above unconscious people. That's not the goal here. The goal is to unify humans because we are all one, and this is not to judge unconscious people and say that they are worse. Because if you have enough consciousness, you'll also have enough compassion to understand that there's a lot of pain that is involved when we are living from ego. No matter how conscious you become, there's always a little bit of ego within us. If you're a human being, you have a sense of self. And there's going to be some of that still left over as long as you're living on this planet. But you can get better and better and better, but there's always going to be something left to ground you into the physical reality. right? That's just how it is right now in this realm, and probably in all realms, but the sense of self can, of course, change. But so you become more selfless, they think you're being more selfish. You begin to have more self-love, right? You begin to love yourself more. The people that are narcissistic are going to think you are being narcissistic. What a funny coincidence. Isn't that hilarious? The more selfless you become, you're not being selfish. You actually have intentions to do things for yourself, usually as an empath, to change the world, because you have a big heart. You're not here just to take, you're here to give. That's the perspective of an empath. That's the perspective of a sensitive being. You have a natural inclination to serve the world because that's what an empath is called to do. And or a light worker, again, the labels don't matter, but you raise your consciousness, you have this heart opening to serve the world. And then you start to take actions. Maybe you separate yourself away from a narcissist and they think you're being selfish because you're not giving them what they need, right? Because they want to take from your energy and you want to give. But because they have so much take, you want to leave and give somewhere else, and you did not give the narcissist what they wanted, they now think you are being selfish. So this is very, very powerful. Now I'm going to share with you something else as well. What is raising your consciousness and raising your frequency? Essentially, you're waking up from the dream of life, right? You're becoming more conscious of reality, the truth of what life is, not what we think life is, because thinking is what creates this dream. You transcend the dream of thinking, right? That's what raising your consciousness is. You go meta on your thoughts. You observe your thoughts. You observe your emotions. You observe your body. You realize that you are not form, but you are the formlessness observer. You're the formless observer, right? So what happens is that you go meta on life. Have you ever been in a dream where you became lucid, where you went meta on the dream, you became conscious that you, as the consciousness that you truly are, you realize that you were in the dream, that you created the dream, not you as this ego, but you as just the formless I, as they call it in some cultures. You woke up from the dream and then you started becoming lucid. That's what waking up in this reality essentially is you're becoming lucid in this physical life. If you're really honest with yourself, there's almost no difference between waking up in a dream and waking up in reality. The only difference really is that this reality is more solid and there's more continuity, but there really is no difference. You're waking up from the dream of life. Now, what's interesting is that the more that you wake up from the dream of life, the more that you wake up from the fairy tale that most people are living in, you wake up from the narrative, you realize what reality is, people are going to think that you are in a dream. That's why the people that are still living in the dream are going to think that you are crazy and you are this woo-woo person. But the truth is that you're actually waking up from the dream of life. And so what's interesting is that the more that you wake up from the dream of life, the people that are still in the dream are going to think that you're in the dream, right? They're going to think you're living a fairy tale. All these spiritual people are so woo-woo. They're living in a fairy tale land. But the interesting thing is that when you're living in the ego, actually the ego is living in fairy tale land because they're attached to the narrative of their minds. Do you see how backwards this is? This dynamic in the relationship is so interesting to me because the more that we connect to the truth, the more that people are living in falsehood will think that the truth is false. You see what I'm saying? The more that you wake up from the narrative and you transcend all thoughts, the people that are still living in the narrative are going to think that you are crazy living in a fairy tale narrative. But really, you're trusting your instinct. Oh, the more truly logical you become, The more you ground yourself and you stop overthinking, you learn to trust your intuition, not live in fear, which is true logic. Logic is, what's the next step I need to take? Does this feel good? Sure, I take that step. I need to go wash the dishes now. I need to go prepare the food now. I need to go call the friend now. That's logic. But most people are living in fear. They're living in fear. What's gonna happen here? What's gonna happen there? It's over logical. It's too much logic. It's too much fear. When you start to actually trust your intuition, people are gonna think that you're being illogical. When actually you are being more logical. You're now using your mind versus the other people, their minds are using them. Now I want you to keep in mind once again that all of this sounds like a very strong judgment. And when I explain it in this way, it can sound like I'm separating the conscious people from the unconscious people. And that's not my intention here, because we cannot separate ourselves from what we judge. When we judge, we are judging a reflection of our own self. If you get angry at somebody, if you resent somebody, you're resenting a piece of yourself, and what you're giving out energetically, you're actually feeling. So what you give out, you become, right? If you're in resistance to something and you're judging somebody, you actually become what it is that you resist. So this is not about judging people that are at a low frequency, because you're going to be at a low frequency sometimes in your life too. You've been at a low frequency in your life before. You've also been in other lifetimes that you were at an even lower frequency, right? And this incarnation, you happen to be at a higher frequency, but that can always change, right? Because you know, we only have one life here, but I also believe that we are eternal spiritual beings, and we do have more than one life. So you got to understand that this is not about judgment or fighting or creating separation. I just noticed this in my life, that when we become closer, when we get closer to the truth, the false perceives the truth as the false, which is very interesting. Very, very interesting. So the next time that you're in an argument with a narcissist, hopefully you don't have any arguments with any narcissistic people in your life, because it's a very toxic dynamic that will lower your frequency. But if, unfortunately, you are in a situation where you have a reflection of your own self, which happens to be a narcissist in that moment, and they are flipping everything backwards, I want you to be conscious of this dynamic. Now, I want to add a bonus to this video. Again, this is not about judging, because here is the trickery that I want to make clear in this video, is that sometimes you might actually be the one that is at the low frequency, flipping the script and judging that person that's at a high frequency. This is where you need to be careful. It's very easy to point fingers and judge people and say, oh my God, they're at such a low frequency. But when you're doing that, you yourself have now lowered your frequency if you're in that judgmental vibration. So the warning sign in this video, the big warning sign, warning, is make sure that you are not that person that is perceiving the truth as actually falsehood. Just be conscious of this. Because like I said, it's easy to notice other people's low frequency stuff, but it's very hard, or it's harder. I'm not gonna say it's hard, because raising your frequency is a lot easier than people make it out to be. Raising your frequency is a very blissful thing. The harder path is actually the easiest path of least resistance. In my opinion, at least. I think that raising your frequency is a lot easier than people make it out to be. But just keep in mind that it's more difficult, so to speak, from one perspective, to notice what you're judging within yourself. So that person that maybe is flipping the script and making everything backwards, they're not going to always be able to realize, actually, wait a second, like, because for example, let's say you're waking up from the dream, right? And then they point fingers at you. It's very unlikely the person's going to be like, actually, what if I'm living in the dream and they're waking up, right? It's very unlikely. That's why the ego wants to look externally. So the thing is though, how do you know you're not the one doing that? So question that, and please make sure that you are not that person. For your own sake and for everybody else's sake, because we are all living in the same reality. It's not about judgment. This is not about criticism. This is not about attacking. This is about learning about who you truly are and raising your frequency, and then giving out more compassion and love to be able to raise the frequency of the planet. So this is not a video to separate. This is a video to become more conscious of the reflections that you have in your life that are a reflection of you. So that's all I have for this video. Once again, if you want to work with me one-on-one personally, hit the link that's in the description box of this video to apply for a free consultation. Also, I do have a group program coming up in the next couple of months. So if you want more details on that, if you want to be part of the program, the link will be in the description box of this video as well. Comment down below if any of these signs resonated with you, and if you've ever had an experience where somebody in your life was completely flipping everything backwards. I'm very interested to know. Let me know in the comments down below. If you resonate with this video, leave a like if you resonate with this video. Let me know in the comments once again if any of this resonates with you. Have yourself a great day, and I'll see you in the next video.